Welcome to Maslow AI, Systems Thinking for Life Fulfillment. I'm John Betancourt. For 25 years, I worked as an aerospace systems engineer and software architect. Our mission was simple: keep planes flying safely and efficiently. When a plane had problems, we didn't guess. We diagnosed each subsystem: hydraulics, avionics, fuel, electrical, until we found the root cause. And as a team lead, I was also responsible for working with and coordinating lots of talented people. And eventually, I realized something profound. People are systems too. When one part destabilizes, the whole human system can break down. And that's what led me to re-examine Abraham Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. Maslow's framework is from 1943, but it still shapes how we view human needs today. However, even great systems can have hidden flaws. And that is what leads to today's story about my friend Alana, and why she's both completely right and completely wrong about Maslow, and for that matter, about sex. Alana once told me, almost defiantly, "I looked at Maslow's hierarchy, and it's not for me. He included sex in the physiological tier, along with food, water, breathing, and sleep." "Well," she said, "I've lived 10 years without sex, and I'm fine. I don't need sex to survive." And she's right. She's not broken. In fact, she's very much alive. But the reason she's right is also the reason she's wrong. Let's explore. Alana is correct. Sex isn't required for individual survival. You can live decades without it. She's living proof. Alana has lots of other go-to sources of pleasure: food, shopping, colors, textures, and of course, her nieces and nephews. She lights up when she describes a perfect meal. She says, "Good food makes me feel alive." And biologically, she's right. Her body depends on oxygen, water, sleep, and nutrition. Without those, you die. However, without sex, the species dies. Maslow wasn't wrong to include sex, but he confused species survival with individual survival. To understand why Alana's reasoning feels right, but Maslow's model still matters, we have to go all the way back to 1943. Maslow said physiological needs were food, water, sleep, sex, and excretion. A beautiful idea, but incomplete. He lumped together two entirely different systems: one that keeps the individual alive and one that keeps the species alive. And that's exactly what confused Alana. Maslow's physiological tier actually hides three separate systems. At the foundation of all physiological needs lies homeostasis, the body's automatic drive to maintain internal balance. Homeostasis is responsible for the body's automatic regulation of things like respiration, circulation, and pH balance. Then there is behavioral allostasis, the conscious regulation of human needs: eating, drinking, sleeping, touching, moving. That's not automatic. You have to actively do this. By the way, movement and touch are examples drawn from our own modern interpretations, not part of Maslow's original 1943 hierarchy. But now we know better. And finally, we have species continuity, sex, which functions to ensure species survival. So Maslow wasn't wrong. However, his system was incomplete. Alana actually helped reveal the needed fix. We don't need sex to live at the individual level. As a software architect, it is clear to me that Maslow's physiological tier needs a restructure. It needs to be organized into 3 sub-tiers. One for homeostasis, things the body regulates on its own. One for allostasis, things that you are responsible for. And a third one that is concerned not with individual survival, but with species survival. However, our friend Alana is also wrong. Alana may not need sex, but at a physiological level, she still needs human touch and human connection. Because while foods fill the body, human connection is needed for both physiological and psychological balance. It makes us whole. And balance isn't a state you find yourself in, it's a system you must actively manage. No question about it. You die without food or water. You don't die without sex, but without touch, trust, and affection, the nervous system slowly falls apart. Touch isn't about reproduction. It's about both physiological and psychological regulation that each individual needs. Sex ensures continuity of the species. Touch ensures continuity of the self. Interestingly enough, Maslow's mentor, Harlow, raised baby monkeys with 2 surrogate mothers, one made of wire that gave milk, and another covered in soft cloth that gave no milk, the so-called Surrogate-Mother-Experiment. The babies clung to the cloth mother almost constantly, even though she never fed them. When deprived of touch entirely, they didn't just become anxious. Some refused to eat and died. Food sustained the body. Touch sustained the self. In the 1970s, psychologist Edward Tronick asked mothers to play naturally with their infants, smiling and cooing, and then suddenly go still. No expression, no response. Within seconds, babies grew visibly distressed. They waved, pointed, cried, and finally collapsed in despair. This was called the still face experiment. 2 minutes of disconnection was enough to completely destabilize their physiology. Let's take a quick look at that experiment.
One of the world's leading experts is Dr. Ed Tronick, director of the Child Development Unit at Harvard University. Together with his team, he's responsible for one of the great experiments in the history of psychology, known as the still face experiment.
Babies this young are extremely responsive to the emotions and the reactivity and the social interaction that they get from the world around them. This is something that we started studying 30, 40 years ago, when people didn't think that infants could engage in social interaction. In the still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby, who's about a year of age.
I'm like a girl. Oh.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her.
Yeah.
This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this, and then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, "Come on, why aren't we doing this?" Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions, they turn away, they feel the stress of it. They actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
Okay. I'm here.
The baby isn't craving attention. It's seeking regulation. Every smile, every coo, every exchange of gaze synchronizes heartbeats and hormones. When that feedback disappears, the body floods with cortisol. Love isn't a luxury. It's a necessity, shared between two nervous systems. And, to be honest, Maslow should have included touch as a physiological need in the allostasis section. And oh, by the way, the need doesn't vanish when we grow up. But instead of our mothers, we just learn to seek the same emotional regulation in the faces of partners, friends, and lovers. Two nervous systems co-regulating through touch, gaze, breath, and trust. When that connection breaks, we feel the same level of panic the infant felt, only we disguise it as anger, withdrawal, or heartbreak. Healthy sex isn't just for pleasure, it's something that can help to regulate our entire nervous system. I once asked another friend what she really wanted from a relationship. She said, "I just want a guy I can sit on the sofa with, hold hands, and watch Netflix." She wasn't talking about wild sex or luxury or excitement. She wanted presence. She wanted that quiet co-regulation, the steady heartbeat beside her, the shared gaze that says, "I'm here." That's what real intimacy is. That's what the nervous system is built for. So when Alana says she can live without sex, she's partly right, but only if she still has connection. We don't need sex to survive. We need responsiveness, someone who sees, soothes, and syncs with us. That's what love really is, a biological feedback loop that turns isolation into safety and connection. Here's where Alana's logic breaks down at the neurotransmitter level. Food and shopping run on dopamine, not oxytocin. Dopamine excites, oxytocin stabilizes. Dopamine says, "I want." Oxytocin says, "I'm safe." Pleasure gives stimulation, but not a sense of safety and emotional regulation. It's the difference between fireworks and a fireplace. Touch, trust, physical presence. These aren't luxuries. They're biological necessities. They calm the amygdala, lower cortisol, and restore the nervous system to balance. When I asked Alana if she'd rather have another piece of cake or a deep, loving kiss from someone she trusted, she paused. And then she said, "The kiss." That was the moment the dopamine confessed what the oxytocin already knew. Today, many of us are drowning in dopamine and starving for oxytocin. When people don't receive oxytocin from real human reciprocity, they look for substitutes. They use food as comfort, shopping as excitement, their cell phones for reassurance, and sometimes even family members as surrogate partners. They mistake activity for intimacy. Restaurants, vacations, work, binge watching all fill the space where intimacy should be. Warmth without trust, novelty without reciprocity, familiarity without real intimacy. Those are oxytocin echoes, not real connection. Our bodies evolved for touch, tribe, and rhythm. Touch, the skin-to-skin contact we get from a hug, a loving embrace, and yes, sex. Tribe, in other words, our belonging group, friends, family, partners, and community. And rhythm, our shared patterns, the synchrony we feel when we move, speak, dance, or breathe together. If this episode helped you better understand Maslow and why you can live without sex, but not without touch, remember to share it with someone who could benefit. And don't forget to subscribe, tap the notification bell, and leave a comment. I read every single comment, and they help me decide what to focus on in future episodes. Again, I'm John Betancourt, and this is Maslow AI, Systems Thinking for Life Fulfillment.